do is I'm going to start in Korean and
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
move on to English.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, do that. Start the intro in Korean.
I usually don't get like not nervous, but okay.
Oh, I get nervous every time when I do these things, even in stories.
캐나다 곽쌤 TV의 구독과 좋아요 꼭 눌러주세요.
안녕하세요. 캐나다 곽쌤 TV 곽재현입니다. 네, 오늘은요, 제가 진짜 특별한 분을 모셨어요. 이번에 새로 책을 낸 작가 루시 송인데요. 인사해주세요.
안녕하세요.
저한테는 되게 특별한데, 왜냐면 한국 분이시고 2세이시고 때문에 제가 오늘 한국말이 아닌 영어로 인터뷰를 하고요. 그리고 이번에 새로운 책이 나왔어요. 예! 너무 축하드려요. Congratulations.
Thank you.
근데 이 책이 저도 사실 아트 쪽으로, 디자인 쪽으로 학부 때 공부를 한 적이 있고 되게 관심이 많아요. 그래서 이 책을 쓰게 된 동기나 이 책에 굉장히 유용한 정보들이 있는지 제가 샅샅이 알아보도록 하겠습니다. So, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for having me here.
I'm super excited. When I first saw the book, I was like, what? I was like just really excited and it was really cool. I just like flipped through the books and there were a lot of really fun activities and so on.
Thanks.
Yeah. So before I move on to the book, like, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Lucy Song. I'm an educator at a local college here. I actually have a lot of Korean visa students in my course. I teach art and design at Seneca College.
That's right.
Yes, and and I have an online website with wonder.co, and there I do more things for younger children, and that's how this book kind of segued into there. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So in Korean we call it 교수님.
Oh, yeah?
is the term for Korean professors.
Oh.
Like professors in Korean, it's called 교수님.
Cool.
Yeah, it kind of brings up the,
Yeah, sounds so posh.
와, 제가 생각해보니까 진짜 교수님이신 걸 제가 깜빡 잊었어요. 왜냐면 컬리지에서도 가르치시고, right? 그리고 또 지금 인스타그램과 온라인으로 여러 가지 에듀케이셔널 그런 자료들을 많이 만들고 계시거든요. 그래서 so there are actually, that's right, the Wonder,
With Wonder.
With Wonder was the one that you're actively working on, right? To
Yes.
develop lots of resources for children.
Yes, for early years education.
That's
so
right.
Up to grade 3.
Up to grade 3, yeah. And just wanted to let you know that her work is amazing, and because I feel like because you also have different and diverse background in terms of like your working experience at Le Chateau and other places, right?
Yes, I used to be the creative director at Le Chateau, which is a fashion retailer company here. I think they were $250 million company at the time before I left. I had a baby, Sawyer.
That's right.
Our kids played together.
That's how I got to know Lucy.
Yeah, so when I had Sawyer, I decided I couldn't do the workload and the traveling, so I left and I started a new path into education, which is always kind of my goal.
I look at her work and it always amazes me how, like, what kind of things that she come up with, just the planning and all the work, like all the final the work that I saw. Even the contents are very amazing because it talks about diversity, right? Which in our education field, that's what we're focusing on. So when I reviewed your work, it was just really amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I think growing up in Canada really gives me a unique perspective.
Exactly.
My parents immigrated here. They got married here. They met here.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were in their 20s. They married here when they were 21, 22, around there. And then they had me really early. And so growing up here, there wasn't a lot of Koreans when I was first here. Now there's a lot. But
That's right.
there was almost none. And I moved schools a lot. So I was always the new kid in class, especially in places like, Milton, Ajax, Brampton. Like they're very outside of Toronto. I also lived in Toronto for a while too. But I think it kind of shaped the way that I see how education maybe should transform a little bit more every day.
That's right.
There's a lot of changes since I was a child, but
Yes.
I don't think there's enough.
You know
Yeah.
what? We're as an educator, it's something that we're still working on
Yes.
to develop as well. But I see diverse students from all over the world, right?
Yeah.
You know, here. And myself, right? I grew up in Korea, I came here, and so I also see things from different perspectives. So when I look at, you know, diversity and equity in a school setting or outside of the school, it's something that we always have to focus on.
Yes, and that's a great change, and there's still more to change, right?
Yes,
like it's an
absolutely.
ongoing kind of process.
Exactly.
Yeah, it can
Yeah.
always get better, and we work, like we take from how everybody's brought it, and we just keep building on it, right?
Yeah. So tell me about your book. It's called Awesome Art Activities for Kids.
Yes.
And lots of pictures and a lot of amazing information. So the first thing that I saw, it popped up was STEAM. I mean, I heard about STEM, but tell me a little bit about STEAM.
So STEM has been very important in part of this change that's happening in schools, right? What educators are hoping for is to move away from grooming children for like the industrial type of inline factory work, and they're moving towards being leaders in STEM fields, so science, technology, engineering, and math.
Exactly.
So for a while, it's been that way. I would say in the last decade or so, but right now, what's changing, especially with a lot of the content creation that's happening right now, a lot of educators are now saying we should add art. Art should be part of the STEM curriculum. So that changes STEM to STEAM, and you add art. So there's not a lot of books on this, and I really wanted to be one person that contributed to this effort in adding arts into the STEM the STEM fields, right? Because I think it's important. Arts has a huge role in the way that we raise our creative kids in the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of, I would say, Korean parents especially, nowadays, before, I don't think they gave a lot of credit to arts, but nowadays, they see the value in it.
Yes.
Right? Because it's how the kids are being raised, and also it shapes their thinking and their mind.
Yes, it
Right?
does. It shapes their thinking so much, and not just for, you know, the growth mindset and resiliency. It's not just for creativity. The way I see art's role are two other bigger things. One for self-awareness and self-expression and navigating the self, and that sense of self, to have a really strong sense of self will really help foster confidence and so that's one thing that I think gets missed in the conversations of why we should be adding art into STEM.
That's right.
The second thing I really think is important is that arts has a way of reflecting our community. So a lot of artists look at our community or look at themselves and say, what is the role? What do we want to say? So there's this huge dialogue that happens, and that I think is really important for our community and for scientists, for engineers, for people in technology to know that we can add what their role is to really self-reflect. Like, how are they going to contribute to the community? What is the impact? And I think arts really pushes that to the forefront, too, in trying to create discourse.
Yes,
because that's the role of art in today, is to create discourse, right?
Yep.
And I think that that's one of the biggest impacts I think that art has in city.
That's right, absolutely. Just to go over the book itself, compared to any other craft, like art craft books that are out there, so I would say the first that distinguished yours out of all the books that are out there would be the idea of STEAM.
Yes.
Right? And I mean, I skimmed through it, and there were like 20 different activities, right? There were 20 different activities, and I really liked how also you were being very considerate of environment.
Yes.
Right? And you use lots of recycled materials,
Yes.
right, that are very easily accessible at home.
Yes.
So parents don't have to go out and purchase art supplies.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like for example, I would say like the sculpt a map. Like I never really seen projects like this where you get to really like build a community around you. So not only like you get to create something, the kids start to think about how to make a connection to the neighborhood around.
Yes,
Right?
what's their role?
Exactly.
Where are they? That
Yeah.
sense of place too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that first project is probably like it really sets the tone and the
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
Because it is asking them to be curious about the neighborhood and where they're from. And it's also teaching them to look at shapes, to be observant. It's also asking them to wander. So the first thing I ask the kids to do is to walk around your neighborhood and take a look at the different shapes you see with the trees. Like, do you see triangles as trees?
That's right.
Do you see squares in the garages? And really to understand that our world is made up of so many different shapes, right?
And this is what we do. Very similar activity in math class when
Yes.
we talk about shapes.
Yes, exactly.
And then this is a great cross-curricular between
Yes.
social studies too,
Yes.
because they look at the community around them.
Yes.
And then they explore.
Yes.
So this is something that I see myself using it in my
Yes.
class.
So it was really so important for
Yeah.
each of these projects to really be something that's an umbrella. So
Yes.
it's not just art focused, but it pulls from other disciplines and
Yes.
you can really cross the
Yeah.
disciplines together. And I think that's what STEAM really is.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that's
mixing
right.
the different and you're applying things from different courses that are
That's
taught
right.
separately, right?
That's right.
And I also mentioned in that project, because STEAM is to groom for the future industry. So I talk about civil engineering, and urban planning and how those are industries that, I never heard of as a child and I wish I did. And maybe I would have went into that. So to introduce things.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. So what would you say the target audience for this activity?
So the publishers asked that it was targeted between age 5 to 10.
Okay.
And it was really important to them that it was something that was self-guided. So
Yes.
they had me do so many of the photos
Yes.
so that they could also do the projects by reading and by looking at photos.
That's right.
To
That's
help
right.
clarify.
Wow. It looks really, really solid. I mean, from all the pictures and everything, one thing that stood out, like the one thing that I think that my son might enjoy is like making animation.
Yes.
Right? He's all about
Yeah.
animation these days. Looking at different steps, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what's funny about this project? There was a little bit of back and forth about this one.
Oh yeah.
With
Tell
the
me.
publisher. So
Okay.
here's the inside scoop.
Okay. Awesome.
So it was really important that for me, because we talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And it was the reason why we do the recycled materials and reusing things is because we want to show that you can do art without having a lot of things. And we want to
right.
reach a broader audience.
That's right.
That, if they may live in the middle of nowhere where they don't
Exactly.
have access to a Dollarama or something. Or they may just not have enough money or their parents are too busy to take them out to buy these things for them.
Yeah.
So it's funny with the specific project with the animation is there was this question of do we ask them to do so originally it was supposed to be a claymation
Okay.
where they take their parents' phone and they take a bunch of
picture,
photos
yeah.
with the claymation.
Yeah.
And the publisher says, I don't think that's accessible, because not everybody will have a phone. And I said, well, there's a lot of libraries available and we should advocate where they have access to,
That's
right?
right.
Because there are resources available. So it was a little bit back. So on the one hand, it's like, I think that, it might be a disadvantage to those who don't have access to these things. But I also want to encourage those who don't typically think that they have access to this, that, there are ways to gain access to
Of
it,
course.
right? And I
Yeah.
think it's important to teach them use the community around you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there was this back and forth. So
I see.
in the end, we went analog.
Okay.
So
Well,
we did the flip book.
But you know what? That's we have a lot of papers, right? Even like at school, we recycle them, but still, like we can use on the the other side to create beautiful artwork, and I think that's
Especially
really
scrap pieces of paper,
Oh.
like the tiny,
Exactly.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I think at the end, I think we made it accessible for teachers, being mindful of that. So we did go analog, yeah, with that
Wow.
project.
No, so what is your favorite project?
Oh my
Which one?
goodness.
I know, but tell me one that's your favorite.